In a small village of Amagiri lived a young girl named Glory. She's only 22, but her eyes tells a tale of 100 lifetime. She hasn't had peace since her mother died 5 years ago. Her father, Mr. Thomas, a respectable farmer, had changed into a wicked drunkard. And then he married a wicked woman, Mrs. Grace, who hated Glory with everything she has. They made her cook, sweep, fetch firewood, farm, and go to sleep without food. Everyone in the village pitied her, but no one dared say a word. Nobody wanted to face Mr. Thomas's madness. There came Harrison, a young man from the city. His clothes were old, his shoes had holes, but his eyes were sharp. He'd been working on Mr. Thomas's farm for 3 months, clearing bushes, planting cassava, carrying heavy load from morning till evening. But after all that, Mr. Thomas refused to pay him. "Come tomorrow. Next week. I'll pay you when I sell something." But nothing ever came. One hot afternoon, Harrison came looking tired and angry. "Sir, I need my money now," he said. Mr. Thomas scratched his head and looked around. His eyes fell on Glory, who was sweeping the compound. He laughed wickedly. "You want money, right?" "Yes, sir, I worked for 3 months, please pay me," Harrison replied. "Well, take that girl instead," Mr. Thomas said, pointing to Glory. Harrison was confused. "Take who?" "My daughter. She's good for nothing. Let her go with you to the city. That's your payment." Glory's heart broke. She dropped the broom and looked at her father. "Daddy, please?" "No." "Shut up," he shouted. "You should be happy someone wants you." Mrs. Grace folded her arms and smiled. "Good. Let her go. One less mouth to feed." Glory fell on her knees, crying, begging, shaking her head. Nobody listened. Harrison looked at her. She was broken, but still looked very beautiful. Not just on the outside. Something in her touched him. "She's beautiful," he said under his breath. "What did you say?" Mr. Thomas asked. "I'll take her," Harrison replied. Just like that, Glory's life changed. With tears in her eyes, she packed her clothes inside a plastic bag. Nobody hugged her. Nobody prayed for her. Her little half-brother cried as she waved him goodbye. As Glory followed Harrison, the journey to the city was long and tiring. The bus passed through many towns, trees, and dusty roads. Glory sat near the window staring outside. She didn't know what to feel. She had just left the only home she ever knew. Even if that home was full of pain, she had no idea where she was going, or what would happen next. But deep in her heart, she prayed silently. "God, please don't let this man be wicked like my father. Please, give me peace." Harrison didn't say much during the journey. He just kept looking straight ahead, thinking deeply. Every now and then, he'd glance at her and sigh. She looked so tired, so small, like someone who had carried too much pain on her shoulders. The bus rumbled into Lagos at dawn. For hours, Glory had pressed her face against the dusty window, watching as the world outside changed. The red earth roads of Amagiri were gone, replaced by wide tar roads, where cars honked like restless goats. The city was alive. Shouts of traders filled the air. Buses screeched to sudden stops. Hawkers ran after moving vehicles with trays of oranges, groundnuts, and sachet water. The noise was so loud, Glory felt it press against her chest. She had never seen such a place. The buildings rose tall. Some painted bright colors. Others old and cracked. Everywhere, people moved quickly, as if chased by time itself. When the bus stopped at the park, Harrison stood and motioned to her. "Carry your bag. We are here." Her legs shook as she followed him into the chaos. She clutched her small nylon bag tightly, afraid someone might snatch it away. Though inside it held nothing but a wrapper and 2 blouses. They crossed the road, dodging cars that sped without mercy, until they came to a row of tricycles painted yellow and green. "End of the road," one of the riders shouted. "Enter, enter, only one chance remain." Harrison pushed gently at her shoulder. "Come." She climbed into the tricycle, the seat rough beneath her. Harrison sat beside her, and the engine roared to life. As they moved, Glory's eyes widened. The tricycle weaved through busy streets where shops spilled into the roads, their tables stacked with bread, second-hand clothes, phone chargers, dried fish, and bottles of palm oil. Children ran barefoot between cars, their laughter mixing with the angry horns of drivers. The air smelled of roasted corn, smoke from suya stands and the sharp sting of petrol. It was 1,000 scents at once, heavy and strange. Glory held onto the edge of the seat, her heart pounding. Is this where I will stay?" she asked in a small voice. Harrison did not look at her. His eyes were fixed ahead. "No, not here. We are going further." The tricycle jolted, turned left, then right until finally it slowed at a quiet junction. "End of the road," the rider shouted. They stepped down. The street here was different. Quieter. The noise of the city faded behind them. Ahead stretched a long, lonely path lined with tall fences and heavy gates. Glory looked around, confused. Where are we going?" Harrison adjusted his shirt and pointed. "There. At the very end." And so they walked. The road seemed endless. With each step, Glory's fear grew. The houses on both sides stood like silent giants, their gates locked, their windows staring. At last they stopped before a tall black gate, polished until it shone. Above it, barbed wires coiled like snakes. Behind the walls, the roof of a mansion rose high, glimmering in the fading light. Harrison knocked. Moments later, the gate creaked open. Glory was shocked, her mouth open but no words came. The compound was wide and clean. The main house was painted white and looked like something from a movie. Flowers were planted in the walkway and even a fountain in the corner. They passed the main house and stopped at a small but neat building behind it. It had one bedroom, a kitchen, a living room, and a bathroom. "It is called the boys' quarters," Harrison said with a smile. Glory looked around. The place was clean and peaceful. "I just got a job here a few days ago as a security guard," Harrison said. "The owner of the house is very kind. She gave me this place to stay for free." Glory looked at him, surprised. "Really?" "Yes," he nodded. "She lives in the main house with her only son. She said I can stay here as long as I keep the compound safe. Are you okay with it?" "Yes," she replied. "I have peace. I've not felt this in a long time." The morning sun slipped gently into the small window of the boys' quarters. For the first time in many years, Glory woke up not to her stepmother's harsh voice, not to the sound of buckets being flung at her feet, but to the soft chirping of birds in the compound. She blinked as if to remind herself that this was real. Legos. The mansion. A new life. Harrison had already woken. He stood outside, pouring water from a plastic bucket over his head. The sound of it hitting the concrete floor reached her ears, and when he returned inside with a towel around his neck, he smiled at her. "You slept well?" he asked gently. Glory nodded shyly. "Yes. Better than I ever have." He placed a small tray before her, bread, butter, and a steaming cup of tea. It was simple, but to Glory it was a feast. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Nobody had ever served her breakfast before. After they finished eating, Harrison said, "Today I'll take you to Madam Walker. You'll work in the big house with the other maids. But don't be afraid, she is not like your stepmother. She has a kind heart." Glory froze at the word maid. Her mind flashed back to the endless chores in her father's house. But something in Harrison's voice, soft, reassuring, told her this would not be the same. The mansion was alive with movement that morning. The gardeners trimmed flowers, and the air smelled of fried eggs and polish. Inside, the other maids were already busy, some scrubbing floors, some carrying laundry baskets. Glory lowered her eyes as they stared at her, the strange girl from the boys' quarters. Then Mrs. Walker entered. She was tall, elegant, her steps graceful, her voice calm. The moment her eyes fell on Glory, she paused. "And who is this?" she asked. Harrison stepped forward. "This is Glory. She's under my care now. I thought she could help in the house." Mrs. Walker's gaze lingered on Glory. Unlike the others, her expression was not sharp or commanding, it was warm, almost motherly. She reached out and touched Glory's cheek. "What a beautiful child," she said softly. "Welcome." Glory's lips trembled. No one had ever called her that. Not her stepmother. Not even her father. Mrs. Walker turned to the head maid. "Don't give her heavy work. Let her assist in the kitchen, set the tables, arrange the small things. She looks delicate. Treat her well." The other maids exchanged glances. Some rolled their eyes, already jealous. But Glory's heart beat fast with relief. This was not slavery. This was dignity. From that day, Glory became part of the mansion's daily life. She wore the same uniform as the other maids, but her tasks were lighter. Mrs. Walker often called her aside to ask questions, sometimes even sat with her at lunch. At night, Glory returned to the boys' quarters where Harrison awaited her. She would tell him about her day, about the laughter in the kitchen, about the strange looks from the other girls. Harrison would listen, smiling, proud. And though Glory still carried the scars of Amigiri in her heart for the first time in years, she began to believe that maybe, just maybe, her life could be different. Every morning, Harrison rose early, bathed, and prepared something small for them to eat. Sometimes it was bread and tea, sometimes yam and egg. Glory often insisted, "Let me cook," but Harrison would shake his head with a playful smile. "You've worked enough in your life. Let me handle this one," he'd say. But she would laugh, her voice soft, almost childlike. "You? Cook? That one I must see with my eyes." It became their small morning ritual, teasing, laughing, sharing food. And slowly, the walls Glory had built around her heart began to crumble. When she began her duties in the mansion, she quickly noticed the difference. Mrs. Walker treated her unlike any other maid. On her very first day, while she was wiping the glass table in the sitting room, Mrs. Walker walked in. "Child, don't bend too much," the woman said gently. "You are not here to break your back. Take your time." Glory straightened immediately, embarrassed. "Yes, Ma," she whispered. The other maids noticed too. They whispered behind her back. "See, as Madam is petting her. She thinks she is special. Not because she came with Harrison, that's why." Glory heard the whispers, but she said nothing. She had lived through worse. One afternoon, when Mrs. Walker called her to sit beside her in the garden, the other maids nearly choked. "Glory, do you like flowers?" Mrs. Walker asked, handing her a small rose. "Yes, Ma," she replied softly, her fingers trembling as she accepted it. "You remind me of this flower," Mrs. Walker said, her eyes warm. "Beautiful but fragile. Don't let the world break you." Tears stung Glory's eyes, but she held them back. She only bowed her head. "Thank you, Ma." Every evening after her work, Glory returned to the boys' quarters where Harrison waited. Their tiny room became her sanctuary. She would sit on the chair while he lay on the bed, or sometimes she would curl up on the floor mat, insisting, "This is fine for me." One night, as she massaged her aching feet, Harrison looked at her for a long while. "You're too young to carry so much pain," he said quietly. She lifted her head, meeting his gaze. "Pain is all I know." He shook his head. "No. That's what life gave you. But it's not all you'll ever know. You'll see happiness, Glory. I promise you." Her lips trembled. She wanted to believe him. Something in his voice, steady and firm, made her heart beat faster. She turned away, hugging her knees. But that night, as she drifted into sleep, his words echoed inside her chest. "You'll see happiness. I promise you." One evening, rain poured heavily over Lagos. The compound was quiet. Even the maids had gone to bed early. The power went out, and Harrison lit a small kerosene lamp in their room. Glory sat on the bed, brushing out her long, tangled hair. Harrison sat across from her, watching quietly. "You should plait it," he said suddenly. She laughed, surprised. "You? Advising me on hair?" He grinned. "Why not? I know what looks nice." She shook her head, amused, but in that moment, her laughter filled the small room like music. Harrison's heart stirred. He had seen many beautiful women, but there was something different about Glory. Her beauty wasn't loud. It was quiet, hidden, like a secret waiting to be discovered. As she caught him staring, she lowered her eyes shyly, her cheeks warm. "Why are you looking at me like that?" she whispered. He smiled but didn't answer. And in the silence, a bond began to form, fragile, unspoken, but real. As the weeks passed, their closeness grew naturally. At work, Glory noticed that Harrison often came by the mansion gates, checking on her, making sure she was not overworked. At night, she told him about her fears, the jealous looks from the other maids, the nightmares about her stepmother. Harrison listened, comforted, and sometimes teased her until she laughed. Each small moment wove them closer together. But in the shadows, not everyone was happy. The other maids whispered louder. And soon James, Mrs. Walker's son, would notice Glory too. When she placed the glass before him, his fingers brushed hers deliberately. She pulled back as though burned, her cheeks warm. James watched her retreat with amusement. He murmured under his breath. "Village girl with city beauty. The other maids noticed immediately. From the corner of the room, Ngozi nudged Beezy. "See the way Oga James is looking at her." Beezy smirked. "This one thinks she's lucky. She doesn't know what's coming." And in the days that followed, the tension grew sharper. James found excuses to call her, "Glory, bring me water," even when another maid stood closer. He teased her gently, sometimes mocking her shy ways. He began to linger near her during meals, watching her with a curiosity that made her restless. Glory, unsettled, tried to avoid him. But in a mansion filled with whispers and jealous eyes, avoidance was almost impossible. That night, back in the boys' quarters, Harrison saw her unease. "You're quiet," he said, folding his arms. She hesitated, then whispered, "James? He looks at me strangely. He talks to me like I am." She broke off. Harrison's jaw tightened. His eyes darkened with a protectiveness he didn't voice. Instead, he said firmly, "Be careful with him. People like James, they are not used to being told no." Glory swallowed, fear knotting in her stomach. She didn't yet know how true his words were. James Walker was not a man who hid his desires. Once something caught his eye, he chased it, and Glory was no exception. At first it was harmless teasing, or so it seemed. He would find her in the garden, plucking flowers for Mrs. Walker, and he'd stroll up casually. "Those flowers are lucky," he would say. Glory would look down, clutching the basket. "Why, sir?" "Because they get to be touched by you before they touch anyone else." Her cheeks burned. She turned quickly, pretending not to hear. But James would laugh, unbothered. One afternoon, Glory was helping Mrs. Walker arrange clothes in her room. Mrs. Walker's tone was gentle as always. "Glory, you are such a bright girl. Tell me, if you had the chance, what would you like to do with your life?" Glory hesitated, then whispered, "I want to study, Ma. I want to be more than just a maid. I want to go to school again, maybe even abroad." Mrs. Walker smiled warmly. "And you will, my dear. God will make a way. Just keep being patient." Neither of them noticed James leaning against the corridor wall outside, listening. His lips curved into a sly smile. That evening he caught her alone in the pantry. "So," he said casually, blocking the doorway, "you want to go abroad?" Glory froze, eyes wide. "Sir?" He smirked. "Don't pretend. I heard you talking to Mama. You want to study. You want a better life. Isn't that so?" She swallowed, clutching a tray to her chest. "Yes, but—" "Good," he cut in smoothly. "Because I can give you that. I can send you abroad. School, comfort, anything you want." Her heart skipped. Why would you do that?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Because I like you, Glory. I want you. And when I want something, I get it. Don't worry about Harrison. I'll take care of him. Pay him off, set him up. You and I, we could be something greater." Glory's chest tightened. The tray shook in her hands. "No, sir," she whispered firmly. "I can't." James laughed lightly, as though she were a child refusing sweets. "Think about it. A lifetime of carrying trays and washing plates, or a chance to see the world. Don't be foolish." And with that he walked away, leaving her trembling. The gossip spreads. The other maids soon noticed the way James lingered around Glory. They fanned the flames of gossip, whispering whenever she passed. "Did you see the way Oga James looks at her? She will soon forget Harrison. Abroad is calling her name. Village girls are always pretending. Watch her say yes soon." Glory bore the whispers in silence. But inside her, fear and confusion grew. Confiding in Harrison. That night, in the boys' quarters, she couldn't hold it in any longer. "Harrison," she whispered, tears brimming. He said he can send me abroad. That he will pay you off. Like you are nothing." Harrison's fists clenched, veins standing on his arms. "James?" His voice was low, dangerous. "I knew he was a snake. Glory, listen to me. Don't ever believe his promises. He doesn't care about you. He only wants to use you." She nodded quickly, tears spilling. "I told him no." "But Harrison, what if he doesn't stop?" Harrison's eyes softened. He reached out, brushing a tear from her cheek with his thumb. "Then I will be here. Always. No one will take you away from me. Do you understand?" For a heartbeat, their faces lingered close in the lamplight, breath mingling, a dangerous closeness neither dared to name. Glory pulled back quickly, heart pounding. But as she lay down that night, she realized Harrison's words had warmed her more than James' glittering promises ever could. The next morning, Glory could hardly look Mrs. Walker in the eye. She moved about the kitchen quietly, her thoughts heavy with the memory of James' offer. Harrison's warning echoed in her heart, but a new fear gnawed at her. What if James didn't stop? What if he made life unbearable for them both? By midday she gathered courage. While Mrs. Walker sat in the parlor reading a magazine, Glory stepped forward, her hands clasped tightly. "Ma," she began, her voice trembling, "there is something I must tell you." Mrs. Walker looked up, smiling warmly. "What is it, my dear?" Glory hesitated, then spoke in a rush. "Your son, James. He said he wants me. He promised to send me abroad to school. But Ma, I do not want that. I only want to serve you faithfully. Please tell him to leave me alone." Mrs. Walker's response. For a long moment, silence hung in the air. Glory's heart pounded as Mrs. Walker's eyes softened in thought. Then slowly the older woman set aside her magazine. "My son James," she said gently, "is a man of his word. He does not promise and fail." Glory's breath caught. "Ma." Mrs. Walker reached out, taking her hand kindly. "Glory, you are a good girl. I have always liked you. That is why I am telling you this. Do not be afraid of James. If he has chosen you, then count yourself fortunate. Many girls would give anything to have his attention." Glory pulled back slightly, shaken. "But Ma, I do not feel." Mrs. Walker cut in softly, though her tone carried persuasion. "Feelings can grow, my dear. Do not close your heart so quickly. James is educated, he has seen the world. He can change your life, give you everything you dream of. Think of your future. Think of the children you will have. Even Harrison cannot offer you what James can." Glory's silence hurt. Glory's lips trembled, but she could not answer. She bowed her head, whispering, "Yes, Ma." Then she slipped out of the parlor, her heart breaking. In her small room in the boys' quarters, she sat on the bed, staring at the wall. Even she believes James is right. Does that mean I am wrong? Am I foolish to resist?" Tears welled in her eyes. For the first time since coming to Lagos, she felt utterly alone. Harrison's steadfastness. That night, Harrison found her quiet, sitting with her chin on her knees. He sat beside her, close enough to comfort but not too close to crowd her. "What is it?" he asked softly. Glory hesitated, then confessed in a broken whisper. "I told Madam about James. I thought she would understand. But she said I should give him a chance. That he can give me a future. Harrison, am I being ungrateful? Am I wrong to say no?" Harrison's jaw tightened, but he forced his voice to remain calm. He turned, gently lifting her chin so her teary eyes met his. "You are not wrong, Glory. You have the right to choose your own life. Even if the whole world tells you otherwise. Do you hear me?" Her lips parted, but no words came. His hand lingered at her cheek, warm and steady. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other, silence filled with a pull neither could name. Then, with a deep breath, Harrison pulled his hand away. "Rest now. Tomorrow will be another day." But as he lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, one thought burned in his heart. "I will not let them take her from me." The moon was high, casting a silver glow over the compound. In the boys' quarters, the night was quiet, save for the soft hum of crickets. Glory sat by the window, her thoughts heavy. Harrison, pacing the small room, stopped and looked at her with a firmness in his eyes that she had never seen before. "Glory." His voice was low, almost trembling. She turned, surprised by the tone. "Harrison." He stepped closer, his heart pounding in his chest. "From the day I met you in the village, I saw your strength. Even in pain, even in hardship, you carried yourself with grace. Here in Lagos, I've watched you work, I've seen your kindness, your humility. Glory, you are the kind of woman a man waits his whole life to meet." Her breath caught in her throat. She had never seen him like this, so vulnerable, so bare. Harrison sank slowly to one knee, his hand trembling as he reached for hers. "I may not have riches to offer. I may not promise you the world. But what I have, I will give you completely, my heart, my life, everything. Glory, will you marry me?" For a moment, the world seemed to stand still. Glory's eyes filled with tears, her heart racing wildly. She had never dreamed of such a moment, never thought love would find her in the shadows of her suffering. With a trembling smile, she whispered, "Yes, Harrison. Yes." Harrison's face broke into the widest smile she had ever seen. He rose, pulling her into his arms, holding her as though he would never let go. "Thank you, Glory. Thank you." Their hearts beat as one, and in that tender embrace, the walls of pain and hardship that had surrounded them for so long seemed to crumble. Just then a knock came at the wooden door. Harrison and Glory pulled apart, startled. He opened the door, and there stood James, with Mrs. Walker by his side. Glory froze, fear gripping her chest. But what happened next shocked her even more. James burst into laughter, stepping forward to hug Harrison tightly. "Congratulations, brother. Finally, you found someone who wanted you for you." Glory's eyes widened. "Brother?" Harrison laughed too, embracing James back, the weight of long-kept secrets lifting from his shoulders. "Yes, James." She said yes. Mrs. Walker stepped into the small room, her face glowing with warmth. She reached for Glory's hands gently. "My dear child, don't be afraid. Tonight, the truth must be told." Glory's voice shook. I don't understand. Brother? Mother? What is going on?" Mrs. Walker smiled softly. "Harrison is my first son. James is his younger brother. The mansion you work in is our home. And you, my dear Glory, were never brought here by accident." Glory's lips parted in shock. She looked from Harrison to James, her heart pounding so loudly she could hear it. James chuckled. "The maids? They were only pretending to treat you coldly. Mother wanted to see your true spirit, to know if you would endure, to see if your heart was pure." Mrs. Walker nodded. "Even James' pursuit of you was part of it, though his admiration became real along the way. But it was never to hurt you, child, it was to prove your worth and to reveal your true heart." Glory staggered back, tears brimming in her eyes. "So, all this time?" Harrison took her hands quickly, steadying her. His voice was steady, full of emotion. "All this time, Glory, my love for you was true. I hid who I was because I needed to know. Would you choose me if I had nothing? Would you love me for who I am, not what I own? And you did. That is why tonight I can stand before you, not just as Harrison the gatekeeper, but as Harrison Walker, son of this house, and the man who will love you forever." Glory's tears fell freely. Her heart was torn between shock and overwhelming joy. The truth was staggering, but his love was undeniable. Mrs. Walker smiled, her eyes glistening. "Welcome to the family, my dear." In that small boy's quarters, under the soft glow of lantern light, secrets were unveiled, truths laid bare. And a love that had been tested in silence found its voice at last. The night had ended with truths too heavy for Glory's heart to carry. She did not sleep. Her eyes stared at the wooden ceiling of the boys' quarters as the hours crawled by. The same walls that once felt safe now felt strange, as though they were hiding secrets she had not asked for. When the rooster crowed and dawn's light broke into the small room, Harrison stirred beside her, his breathing calm. He had slept in peace after the long confession, but Glory's chest still carried unease. She sat up slowly, holding her knees to her chest. "So, it was all a plan," she whispered to herself, almost afraid to say it aloud. Harrison's eyes opened at her voice. He sat up quickly, reaching for her hand. "Glory." She pulled slightly away, her eyes brimming with confusion. "Why didn't you tell me? All those days I thought we were struggling together, I thought we were the same. You watched me sweep floors, scrub dishes, suffer under the cold stares of the maids, and you said nothing?" Harrison's face tightened with pain. He touched her cheek gently. "Because I had to know. I had to be sure that the woman I love would love me for me, not for the name Walker, not for the wealth, not for what the world can give." Her lips trembled. "But do you know how I felt? I thought I finally found a family that saw me as a human being, not as a slave. I didn't know it was all a test." His voice dropped to a whisper. "It was never just a test. Every moment with you was real, every laugh, every tear. Glory, I swear to you, I would never have let you be hurt. James, the maids, even Mother, they all knew to stop if it became too much. I was watching over you always." She wanted to believe him, yet her heart ached. The truth was too large, too sudden. At the mansion. Later that morning, Harrison insisted they join Mrs. Walker for breakfast in the main house. Glory resisted at first, but his gentle persuasion broke her silence. When they entered the dining hall, The maids who once treated her with cold stares now smiled brightly, their voices warm as they greeted her. "Good morning, Sister Glory." Her steps faltered. "Sister?" The same lips that once hissed and mocked now spoke to her with respect. At the head of the table sat Mrs. Walker, dressed in flowing silk, her presence commanding yet tender. She rose with a smile and extended her hand. "Come, my dear. Sit beside me." Glory obeyed slowly, her hands trembling. She felt out of place, like a sparrow suddenly placed among doves. Mrs. Walker poured her tea herself, ignoring the maids. "You must forgive us, Glory. It was not cruelty, it was protection. In this world people come for wealth, for names, for power. But you endured. You showed patience, humility, and a heart that cannot be bought." Her eyes softened. "That is why I am proud to call you my daughter." Glory's tears threatened to spill. She lowered her gaze, unsure of what to say. "James teasing." From across the table, James grinned mischievously. "Ah, Sister Glory, you nearly broke my heart when you said no to me. I thought I was charming enough." Glory's eyes darted to him, startled. Harrison immediately shot him a sharp look, protective and firm. "James?" But James only laughed, raising his hands in surrender. "Relax, brother. She's yours and you know it. I only say it because now I understand why you hid her away in the boys' quarters. She was never just another maid, you saw her worth from the beginning." Glory's cheeks warmed. She lowered her head, embarrassed, but inside her heart stirred with a strange relief. After breakfast, Harrison took her hand and led her into the garden behind the mansion. The flowers were in full bloom, their fragrance filling the air. He turned to her, holding both her hands firmly. "Glory, listen to me. Nothing has changed. I am still the same man who walked with you from the village, who held your hands on the road to Lagos, who slept beside you in the boys' quarters when the nights were cold. That is the man you said yes to last night. Wealth or no wealth, my love for you remains the same." Glory's tears finally spilled, but this time they were not of pain, they were of release. She leaned into him, her head resting on his chest. "Harrison," she whispered, "promise me one thing." "Anything," he answered. "Promise me that no matter how big this world gets, no matter how heavy the name Walker is to carry, you will never stop being that man. The man I fell in love with." Harrison held her tighter, his lips pressing gently against her forehead. "I promise, Glory. Always." And in that moment, beneath the rising sun and the blooming flowers, Glory began to let go of her fear. Slowly, she allowed herself to believe that even in the midst of wealth and secrets, their love could remain true. The days after the great revelation were like the breaking of a new dawn for Glory. For the first time in her life, her dreams were not only heard but carried into reality. Mrs. Walker kept her word. Papers were prepared, fees were paid, and within months, Glory found herself in a white blouse and black skirt, standing before the gates of a university in Lagos. The sign read, "Faculty of Medicine." Her hands trembled as she touched her bag strap. She had once been the girl who fetched firewood barefoot. Now she was about to step into the halls where doctors were made. At first it was not easy. The city children spoke fluent English, their accents polished, their clothes shining. They mocked her village intonation, whispered when she stumbled in class. But Glory did not bend. She carried the same resilience that had seen her through nights of hunger and years of scorn. And always Harrison was there. When she felt small, he reminded her of who she was. When her eyes were heavy with study, he brewed tea for her, sat by her side in silence, simply holding her hand. He did not overshadow her. He stood behind her, a quiet strength. James, ever the tease, would visit her campus sometimes, pretending to be her bodyguard. But beneath the jokes, he too respected her willpower. Years turned like pages in a book. Tests, practicals, sleepless nights, sacrifices. Where others dropped out, Glory pressed forward. Slowly she changed. Her English grew fluent, her confidence sharper, her knowledge deep like a river after rain. She was no longer just Glory the house girl. She was becoming Dr. Glory. 7 years after that morning when she first touched the school gates, the auditorium overflowed with proud parents and graduates. The stage was lined with flowers and the sound of clapping filled the air. Glory, now a young woman clothed in the black gown and cap of a doctor, stood at the front. When her name was called, Dr. Glory Thomas Walker, the hall erupted with applause. Tears blurred her vision as she stepped forward. She caught sight of Mrs. Walker dabbing her eyes with a silk handkerchief, James clapping wildly, and Harrison, her Harrison, smiling with pride so pure it nearly broke her heart. She received her certificate with trembling hands. For a moment she remembered her late mother and whispered in her heart, "Mama, I made it." As she turned, Harrison stood waiting at the bottom of the stage. The crowd faded. All she saw was him. He stretched out his hand and she placed hers in his. The boy she had once walked beside on the dusty village road, the man who had hidden his identity just to win her heart, was now standing with her at the peak of her dreams. And though the journey was far from over, Glory knew this was only the beginning of a greater story. The sun rose gently over Lagos that morning, casting its gold upon a mansion that shimmered like a dream. It was not Mrs. Walker's nor James but Glory's, a home Harrison had built with his own hands and heart, brick upon brick, as a gift to the woman who had once slept on mats in a cold village hut. Inside, laughter echoed. The mansion was alive with preparations. The halls were decorated with white lilies, silk drapes, and the scent of roses. Today was the day Harrison and Glory would be joined as one. Glory, radiant in her flowing white gown, stood before the mirror, her hands gently caressing her stomach. Just 3 weeks into pregnancy, a secret she carried like a fragile flame. Only Harrison knew, and sometimes when his hands rested protectively on her belly, his eyes grew misty with gratitude. The ceremony began under a canopy in the mansion's garden. Mrs. Walker, dressed in royal blue lace, watched with joy only a mother could carry. James moved about like a restless bird, making jokes, fixing ties, ensuring everything was perfect for his brother and new sister. The once mean maids, now revealed as loyal friends, danced with happiness, their laughter genuine this time. When Glory walked down the aisle, the crowd fell silent. She was no longer the weary village girl forced into servitude. She was a woman crowned with dignity, love, and triumph. Harrison's eyes brimmed with tears as he took her hand. His voice was steady, though thick with emotion. "Glory, you are my answered prayer. Today, before God and man, I choose you, the girl who saw me when I was nothing, the woman who gave me everything." Her reply was soft but firm. "Harrison, you gave me more than love. You gave me hope and a future. I stand with you in sunshine and in storm as long as breath is in me." The vows were sealed with a kiss, and the garden erupted with cheer. That night, the mansion's courtyard overflowed with food, music, and dance. Drums beat like a heartbeat, children laughed, and elders nodded with satisfaction. The story of Glory had become a song on the lips of many, the maid who became a doctor, the orphan who became a wife, the forgotten child who found her place in the arms of love. As the stars lit the sky, Glory leaned against Harrison, whispering, "I'm carrying our child, our future." He pressed his forehead to hers, his voice breaking with joy. "Then this mansion, this love, this life, it's all for you and for them." And in that moment, surrounded by family, laughter, and the quiet promise of tomorrow, Glory knew that her story, once written in tears, had been rewritten in gold. Enjoyed this story? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Echoes of Ancient for more African tales and life-changing stories. Your support keeps us creating. Subscribe now and never miss a new story. Follow us for more unforgettable journeys and lessons hidden in stories.